Hi, this is Terry Healy bringing you some extraordinary transformation. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in. You're listening to WVLP at 103.1 FM, also live streaming at WVLP.org. Today's show is brought to you by Ryan Eberhardt from Diamond Residential Mortgage. Don't assume all mortgage companies are the same. They're not. Ryan cares about his clients, he cares about their families and their wallets. So if you're looking for some mortgage financing, look him up. He's wonderful. His office is conveniently located. He's on Route 30 in Valparaiso at 350 Northland Drive. And his direct line is area code 219-707-8429. Ryan, as always, thank you so much for supporting my show and supporting community radio. Today's guest is a gal that I met probably about a year ago. When did
I think it was probably close to a year ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I have the pleasure of having an interview with Monica Kelsey. She is the founder and CEO of Safe Haven Baby Boxes. So for those of you that are not familiar with what exactly is a Safe Haven Baby Box, I'm just going to open the conversation there. Can you tell us what that's about?
So Safe Haven Baby Boxes is an organization that fights to make sure that no child is left in dumpsters or trash cans or along the side of the road. And so we install boxes, literal boxes, in the side of a fire station. And it basically, we cut a hole in the wall like we're putting a window in. And this box slides through that hole. So the inside of the box is on the inside of the fire station, and the outside of the box is where mom is. And it's on the outside of the fire station. And these boxes are alarm triggered. They go to 911. They're heated, they're cooled, and they're monitored. So, and they're saving babies in the state of Indiana. And these are for women who find themselves in a crisis that they just feel they can't get out of. And instead of, doing something that they're going to regret, they can place their child in one of our boxes and turn around and walk away, and it's completely legal in the state of Indiana.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How long have you had boxes in the state?
The first installation was April 26th of 2016.
Okay.
So we're going on 4 years. Yeah, so 4 years, but it hasn't been without, a roller coaster ride either,
Sure.
Ups and downs. I mean, when you bring something new to the United States and you expect people to understand it when they really don't, I get so often, what do you mean we're putting babies in boxes? And I'm like, well, they're putting them in dumpsters now. We have to have an alternative for them. And so the more they understand the program and the more they see that these boxes, it is a good option to a dumpster.
Sure.
Usually you can change their mind, but you got to get them past that. What do you mean we're putting babies in boxes?
Right.
And get them to understand that we're doing this to save these babies from not being in dumpsters.
Well, and how I found my way to you was the dedication of the box in Hammond.
Yes.
So what I got the privilege to see was how that box looks and how things happen from the back end of the box.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, obviously enlightening. That's not the world I walk in. But what struck me and what I've shared about what you're doing and how you do it is that my understanding, and correct me if I got it a little bit wrong, but is that if someone does bring a baby to the box, there's a 60-second delay.
Yes.
So they can get turned around and headed back on the way that they need to. And so there's no stigma or shame or identification or anything. And that I thought was very profound.
Well, and that's the mission, is to allow women 100% anonymity.
Yeah.
And we can't just have the alarms go off immediately, because then everybody would run directly there. We have to give these moms a little bit of time. But we don't want to give them too much time, because a child is in our box that probably needs medical care because this child was just born. So 60 seconds is the cutoff, and it starts then tripping in the inside of the hospital at Hammond. They have a blue light in their ER that goes off at 60 seconds. And they head for the box, and usually, no one is there. And in the case of Hammond, we had a baby in that box, September 7th of 2019. And this was 10:30 in the morning on a Friday at a hospital. So you know how busy hospitals are. But it's interesting because I've talked to so many people from the hospital, and no one's seen her. No one's seen her do this.
So I just keep I'm gonna get goosebumps.
No one's seen her, and they did not expect it. Of course, we did not get a call that this mom was going to place in our box, and so it was a surprise to us as well. And but no one recalls her anybody even being around that baby box. So she literally had anonymity, and that's the key.
Right. That is, and And you know, it was interesting too, and at the Hammond was they were talking about they had rehearsed and timed that route from where the medical staff is to the back of the baby box. Like what's the fastest route, quickest way to get there?
Yep.
You know, it's just what. And so you said something that made me think of another question though too. Was you said people in the United States? Is this something that's been done overseas? That oh wow!
Yeah, there are baby boxes in Germany, in Switzerland. Switzerland, they call them windows, baby windows.
Oh.
In Germany, they're called baby hatches. In Seoul, South Korea, they're called the drop box. Yeah, they're all over in other countries. And in Seoul, South Korea, so in 2018, I had the amazing opportunity to fly to Japan and meet every one of these people that were running these baby boxes and baby hatches, and we had a convention in Japan, and it was kind of a convention on how can we make this better for the world.
Yes.
You know, how can we come together and do this better? And so we had this. It was I was there for 7 days. It was just awesome. But I got to meet this man. His name was Pastor Lee. And they actually made a movie after him called The Dropbox, and it's on. I believe it's on Netflix.
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
So he was tired. He's from Seoul, South Korea. He was tired of seeing the news and all these babies being left alongside the road, and they would die. Yeah. They weren't found in time. Right. So he decided, without the help of the government, that he was going to put a baby box in his house, on the side of the wall of his house. Not even kidding. Wow. And he loves Christ, and to see his heart is just so pure. Right. And he installed that baby box, or the drop box is what he calls it, in 2009, and he just had his 1600th baby in his drop box.
Oh my! In 11 years. Not even 11 years. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I'm like, I was like, are you sure you didn't mean 160?
I know.
And he's like, no, 1,600 babies have come through. He gets about 27 babies a month.
Wow.
I'm just like, and why are you the only one still?
Right.
But the government over there has literally fought. And I'm just like sitting there thinking to myself, why would anybody? This man has just saved 1,600 babies. Why on earth doesn't he have a key to the city at least, you know? Right. But, you know, there's different cultures, and but he still gets pushback from the government there. And it is really, really sad, because 1,600 babies is 1,600 babies. And those babies, he gets a lot of them that come back and thank him with their adoptive families, and he gets a free pass, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and he's just so amazing. So
why would the government be pushing back on that? I mean, that's baffling to me. I see no logic.
Well, you look at Indiana. You know, when we first started in the state of Indiana, we got tons of pushback from the government. Yeah, you know, the Department of Child Services and the Department of Health came back and said, shut your boxes down, or we're going to sue you. Yeah, so this was a huge, you know, when I first started this in Indiana, this had never been done here before.
Yeah.
This was something that I seen in another country. I was actually in Cape Town, South Africa, and I seen a baby safe there. And I'm a firefighter and medic by trade, and so I've always known about the safe haven law. But I was like, why don't we have boxes in America? You know, if these are working so well, why don't we have them here? And so I came back to the States, and I started, you know, seeing the statistics. And, you know, yes, we're saving babies by the safe haven law, but we're also finding babies in dumpsters still. And it's like, why?
Just to interject there, what is the safe haven law?
So the safe haven law says, and it's been around for 20 years in the United States, and it basically says that if you don't want or can't care for your newborn child, you can walk into a fire station, police station, or hospital and hand that child to a person and turn around, walk away, no questions asked, as long as the child is not abused.
Okay.
So then I came back to the United States. I hand drew a baby box, took it to a builder, contacted a congressman and said, hey, I want you to pass me a baby box bill, and they were like, what are you talking about, you know? And I'm like, look, I'm going to save babies in boxes. And they're like, you all right? You know, it was kind of like that conversation, And then the more I started showing them the stats, you know, when you put numbers in front of them and you put dead baby numbers in front of them, you know, they start to realize we've got a problem. In Indiana, we were averaging 2 to 3 dead babies a year in our state. Just one state, 2 to 3 dead babies a year. So so the congressman decided to champion this bill and get it passed. And basically what that bill did that went through the legislator in the state of Indiana was it asked the Department of Health and the Department of Child Services to make protocols, policies, and procedures for the use of baby boxes. Because I wasn't an expert in this field of baby boxes. And so I wanted their help. I just was bringing the idea and had the drive to do it. And so we passed the law. It passed unanimously in Indiana, and they had until December 31st to do protocols, policies, and procedures. And they came back on December 30th and said, well, we don't recommend baby boxes, therefore we're not doing that. And so what I did, you have to know me, Terry, I don't take that well. And so, you know, and I had done all the research, and I'm like, this is crazy. I pass a law and it tells you to do something, and now you're saying you're not going to do it. I mean, how does that work?
Right.
And so I hired Jim Bopp's law firm out of Terre Haute because he is known for being a little feisty.
Okay.
And so I contacted him and I said, hey, Jim, the legislator ain't doing what I asked him to do. Is there any law in Indiana that says that I can't put these in right now? And so he did his research. He came back and he goes, Monica, let's do it. There is no law saying you can and no law saying you can't.
Oh, there you go.
And he said this is going to force the legislator's hand then. And so I was all in. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to show them. I'm going to, you know, do this anyway. So then I went ahead and launched. And I launched the first 2 baby boxes. And of course at that point then they came back and wanted to shut me down. And so the government was, and their pushback was valid. I'll give them that, because they wanted to make sure that these boxes were as safe as possible, that a newborn wouldn't die in one of these boxes. And we have had what they call for performance testing done on them to make sure that they're as safe as possible. We had an engineer do all the electronics to make sure that it is as safe as possible. And we hired a company to build the shell of the box to make sure that it's as safe as possible. And so so after, you know, that fight with the Department of Child Services, then the legislator stepped in and said, okay, she's not going to stop unless she's going to continue to do this. We have to make a stand. And so then they passed the baby box bill in Indiana, and now we have 25 boxes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's taken off. We have 45 orders for more, not just in Indiana, because we've now passed the law in 5 other states.
Oh.
Yeah. So so we're working in 5 other states now as well. We've got 45 locations that we're working with. And I'm just excited to see where Christ is going to take us. You know, with these boxes in Indiana, you know, I was telling you before that we were finding 2 to 3 dead babies in our state every year. Now we're finding 2 to 3 babies in our boxes every year, and 0 dead babies in our state. And that's where the success lies.
Sure.
You know, it's not, you know, oh, we pat ourselves on the back because we got a baby in a box. It's like, no, we pat ourselves on the back because that baby wasn't placed in a dumpster.
Right, that's a
and
life.
that mother's life can go on, and this child gets adopted. You know, and you know, and it's such a blessing to see these babies, because, you know, on the other end of that box, on the other side of that box, was a mother that loved her child so much that she wanted what was best for this child, and it wasn't her. And that is the definition of selfless. You know, I'm often quoted, you know, in newspapers and magazines and articles saying that our boxes and adoption, it's not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength.
Because without a doubt. The courage.
Yeah, and you know, for a mom to basically say, I want what's best for my child, and it's not me,
right,
that is selfless. And so we have to thank these mothers more and say, you know, thank you for doing the right thing,
right.
And stop saying, oh, I could never do that. You know, it's like, you've never been in her shoes, so don't judge her.
It's not for us to judge.
No.
It's not our privilege.
No, not at all.
So you say 2 to 3 babies a year passing in Indiana, and I'm just going to tell you, my first thought was that we know of.
Correct.
You know, that there's hundreds, I'm sure, that we'll never know of.
Yes.
It's just those are the ones that were recovered. So it's only 2 to 3 babies. You're getting more babies than that with all these
That's per
boxes.
year now in Indiana.
Okay.
So, well, this year we're in March, right? Or I don't know when your show's going to air, but right now we're in March, and we're averaging a baby a month.
Gosh.
Yeah, and again, no babies in dumpsters, and that is key. That is where we just applaud.
Yeah, that's success.
Yeah.
That's success. And I think it's like anything else when the awareness continues to grow. You know, so the gentleman, the doctor that you spoke of that gets the 1,600 babies, has rescued 1,600 babies. That's because people know that resource exists.
Exactly.
It's had enough time out there where people can talk about it and share about it. I know that you're out there on social media. How else are you getting your message out there?
You know, that's the big thing. But you know, one of the biggest components of us is news, media, and billboards. Of course, we're in the schools.
Billboards.
Yeah, we do a ton of billboards, and we advertise on our billboards not how many saves we've had or not how many babies are in our boxes. We advertise an 800 number, and that's literally the workhorse of our organization, because we want these moms to call us.
Okay.
Because when they call this 800 number, that's on all of our literature, it's on all of our billboards, it's everything that we have. Our box has the 800 number on it when a mom walks up to it, so she can call us first. And when she calls, we're offering anything else but that box, because a parenting plan is a better option than placing your baby in a box. An adoption plan is a better option than placing your child in that box. Walking into that facility and handing that child to a person is better than placing a child in a box. But if they won't do those, then we're going to offer that box to them.
Right.
And we're going to give them the instructions on how to use it. We're going to encourage her, you know, in a way that she knows she's doing the right thing, because, you know, some of these moms, they don't want to feel shamed.
Sure.
And we have to be very careful when we're talking to them. But news media is huge. Every time there's a story, we send out a press release. And usually they always pick it up, because baby boxes are big news. You know, when there's a baby placed in one of our boxes, we announce it. We actually get a little pushback from some of the communities, because when a baby's placed in our box and we announce it to the media, we don't give any information, any identifying information. But what we do give is hope to the next mother that's listening, you know, and the encouragement that she might need, that this box works, and we thank the mother who utilized it. And then we also remind the public that this box is in your community. And that's huge, because the more we keep it out there, the more it's in people's minds. So that's very, very important. But billboards and media is really, really big for us.
That's a billboard surprises me.
Yeah, they're very expensive too.
Oh, I know
That's
they are.
the bad thing.
Yeah, I know they are.
So we're constantly looking for good deals on billboards.
Sure.
You know, especially when we just put a box out. I mean, we do a huge media blitz, you know, a social media blitz, media and social media blitz, and then we put billboards in that community, you know, reminding. And everybody's aware of the type of billboard when they see it. When you see it, you know it's us.
Right.
You know, and it's a firefighter holding a baby. And you know at that point, it's got to do with something with a fire station, and you got a baby, and it's like, why is this man handling, you know?
Yeah.
And so you want to read what it's about, because you see this cute little firefighter and this cute little baby, and you know, but we use the same billboards with just different, you know, marketing techniques to get the message out there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's working in Indiana, because we've had no dead babies in our state since 2015. Or 2014.
It just amazes me. You know it does. So, and here's the other, you know, some thoughts, obviously rambling through, is that, you know, because it's anonymous, there's no way to really track, like, who's making use of it.
Right.
So I always, and I could not be the only one with this perception, but I always think that it's probably like a younger woman and somebody who's disconnected or doesn't have resources, or maybe not even an adult yet, to be able to manage things. And I always think of them as being emotionally disconnected from being pregnant, possibly, or, you know, maybe in some sort of a state of denial about it. And all of a sudden there's the reality.
Right.
Here's a birth.
Right.
And what do you do from there?
Well, and that's where the crisis starts. So they have to know what they're going to do before that crisis gets here.
Yeah.
because in the moment of crisis, you aren't thinking clearly.
Right.
So they need to have that information on the safe haven law. But, you know, we have had young moms surrender. I mean, our 800 number fields these calls every single day. We average about 2 calls a day, but our number is nationwide. You know,
Really?
yeah, because a person in California that doesn't have, there's no baby boxes in California, but if a mom from California calls us, we have their law, and we're going to encourage them to utilize the law as it's written.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
and so we want them to call us. And so it's not that just that we're pushing women to boxes. You know,
Right,
we're
right.
pushing women to make good choices.
Right, right.
And but you know, we've had older women utilize our box, and we have had younger women utilize our box. And every case is different. There's never the same case. And you know, some of the women that we work with, my job, which is I just love this part of my job, is walking alongside these women. You know, when they call us and they surrender in our box, or they surrender by handing the child to a person, my job at that point is to give them every resource available to them, whether it be medical resources. Counseling is huge for these moms.
Oh, sure.
And maybe they just need, their rent paid.
Yeah.
And so I walk alongside them, and I can tell you that I am very good friends with 2 of these moms that have placed in our box, and I spent Christmas with one of them last year. And that's important for me, because I want them to know I got their back.
Yeah.
I have their back. And but getting to know them, every situation's different. Every situation's different. One of the moms that surrendered in our box learned of the box from a press conference of a baby that was saved. So you see why we do it. It's not to pat ourselves on the back that a baby was saved. It's the education piece.
Yeah, the education and the awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that completely. Well, I'm sure like a lot of organizations, funding would help.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a total nonprofit,
Yeah.
and we beg for the funds to be able to do what we do, and but we've been very blessed with the people that are walking alongside us, and the organizations, the companies that have been. But every year we get to a point where we're like, we got to stop. We got to cut back on billboards, because we don't have the funding for that.
Sure.
Or I'm in schools every week, speaking to kids in schools, and
Really?
yes, that is huge too.
That's shocking.
Well, and it's not just me.
Yeah.
It's not just me. We have 3 educators on our staff. We have 2 part-timers and then me that go into the schools. And then we also have volunteers that do it as well. And those people are called boots on the ground. And boots on the ground is people in your community. Like we have a volunteer out of Billings, Montana. We're not anywhere near Montana, but she loves what we're doing, and she believes that community needs to hear more about the safe haven law. So we've educated her. We have a training that you do twice a month, and we train them to go into schools, and we give them the outline. They donate their time. They feel like they're giving back to their community.
Sure.
And it's helping us because we're getting our message of the safe haven law, which is in all 50 states. And she would not go into her school and educate on the baby boxes. That wouldn't be a good idea for her. So she goes into her school, we give her the outline, and she educates on the safe haven law for Montana. And so we make sure that it's geared to that state.
Yeah.
So that no one's confused.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're doing a little bit more than what I thought.
There's so much to our organization that people don't know.
Just to put an interruption in the middle of it, if somebody wanted to do a donation to your organization, how would they best do that?
They can go to shbb.org. Let me say that again. shbb.org. And it's basically Safe Haven Baby Boxes, the initials of Safe Haven Baby Boxes.org. And they can donate there. They can learn so much about what we do. We've trained first responders as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I like to do, because I'm a firefighter and a medic, and we're on the same page. We're
Sure.
on the same level, and I love going in there and looking at the trucks and just kind of comparing stats, and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, firefighters, they're the real deal.
Yeah.
They really are. You go into these fire stations and these big burly guys, and they're like teddy bears. They're like, you put an infant in their arms, you might as well give them a bottle and a rocking chair.
Right.
But yeah, there's so much to what we do, and I'm excited to see where we're going.
So 5 states, You're coming into
5
more
states right now that we're legal in.
Okay. Which states can I ask?
We have Arizona, Arkansas, Indiana, of course, Ohio, and Pennsylvania.
Oh.
We have legislation right now pending in 11.
I like that.
Yeah, so Kentucky is huge. They just had an abandonment this week, a baby that was found deceased. And North Carolina has a lot of safe haven surrenders, but they have a ton of abandonments. Florida is another one. They've had in 3 years, they've had 19 babies found dead in their state. I'm like, you guys need some help, seriously. So we're working on legislation there, but yeah, there's 11 states working on legislation right now, which is awesome.
And what's the projection for when the legislation will pass and you'll be able to move forward?
I am never I'm never surprised when something happens, and I'm never, not surprised when something happens, because you never know what's going to happen in the House or the Senate of a state house.
Okay.
But hopefully, some of these states, which, again, you're going to get pushback on these states because this is a new concept.
Sure.
But hopefully we'll get half of the ones at least. But I believe that Christ is going to put the states that I need to work in our path
Without
to
a
do
doubt.
it.
Without a doubt.
So we just kind of sit back and wait and let Christ lead the way, and we just try to stay on path.
Well, and I've got to think too that like just having the successes that you're already experiencing, where you already are, has to help that movement even be like that has to be more palatable to a state like Florida. Like look at what we're doing in Indiana so far. Look what we've already done.
Well, and you look at Indiana has had the lowest infant mortality rate in 8 years. And it's not, I'm not saying it's baby boxes, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
I'm saying that all of these organizations are taking note in Indiana that we have to lower this infant mortality rate.
Right.
And now for the first time in 8 years, we've had the lowest.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Oh.
And so we're a part of that. We're not the sole purpose why it's going down. But there's so many, there's never a one size fits all.
Right,
so not
right.
one organization is going to fix the infant mortality.
Correct.
It's going to take all of us. And we have fixed the abandoned babies being found dead in our state, which we're dropping the infant mortality 3 babies a year.
Right.
Now you're not having that, so that you just saved that that part of the infant mortality. But infant mortality is going down in Indiana, and states are noticing that.
Wow.
So baby boxes is a part of getting that down. It's not the sole part.
No, it's not. It's not. And it's interesting that you said that because they're connected to somebody who's pretty vocal in the opioid crisis conversation, and he was telling me we were one of the highest states.
Yes.
And so that was pre the information that you have. So I'm going to share that.
Yeah.
Wow. Something's shifting. Somebody's listening. Somebody's paying attention. Any other states that you're thinking you want to target, or just those?
Oh gosh, Texas. They have abandonments usually every couple of weeks. You see something coming out of Texas. California is horrible. New York, horrible. New Jersey, we just found a set of twins in the dumpster. It's like it's happening all over. It really is. And until we start getting this in the media and in the social media and in the hands of the people who need to hear it, it's going to continue to happen because these women are scared. They're going to feel judged. They're going to feel shamed. So then they do something rash. They need to know about this option before the crisis gets there. Because once that crisis gets there, it's over. They need to know what they're going to do before that.
That's a tough place to stand. Because, again, it's like I think... what is there... Can you do anything when the crisis is there?
Well... That's certainly what we try to do if a woman doesn't know the options ahead of time.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in with, can you do a parenting plan? Can you do an adoption plan? Can you walk into that fire station and hand that child to a person? Okay, here's the instructions for the baby box. But, we've had women call us in labor.
Yeah,
We've had women call us that have just given birth and they are flipping out. We've had to go pick up a child before, a newborn child that was just born, and surrender that child under the safe haven law. And so we do whatever is necessary at the time to save this child's life and hope that the mother will allow us to help her.
Yeah. Ooh. So do you have enough support in your organization? Like I'm thinking of all like you said, the phone lines that need to be manned and the people that have to be educated, and then folks that you could group to become educators within the school system or other, I mean, do you need people?
Yeah, we need a ton of volunteers, especially people to get into the schools. That's
Yeah.
key. We need people in the schools. We need people to do fundraisers for us. That's huge for us as fundraisers because it does two things. It raises money for us, but it also raises education in the community that they're doing the fundraiser in.
Sure.
So that's huge, and there's so many things people can do. I mean, sending out letters. We have one volunteer that all she does is send out thank you letters to people who donate to us.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
that's she's good at that, and that's what she
Yeah.
wants to do, and it
That's how she
helps
serves.
us. Yeah, and then we have people that go into schools and educate these schools on the safe haven law for their state. And don't think that this job is too big and do nothing. Do something.
Well-
Do something, even if it's just something small. Do something.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity, so that no matter what pulls somebody's heartstrings or their wallet strings,
Right.
there's a place that they can land in a way that they can contribute and help what you're doing. How would somebody find you on a social media platform?
Safe Haven Baby Boxes.
Oh, there
You
we
can
go.
actually just Google us and we'll just pop right up.
There we
So,
go.
yeah.
I like that. It's obviously enlightening. I mean, just kind of what you're going through and what you've had to go through to get these. I do understand, and thank you for sharing, like, why there was a little bit of governmental pushback. Yeah, that did make sense, because the whole thing just seems like baffling and illogical that anybody would ever say no to this, because it's just, I think having seen it was important for me, to see the logistics of it. Now it's how it's happening in the world.
Right.
But it's good to know why that is, because then that just helps on the understanding of those that want to contribute. Fundraisers, are you often finding like churches or other?
Churches, yeah. I tell people, bring me in to speak.
Yes.
Bring me in to speak. I mean, my backstory. I speak in a lot of churches about my birth mom, and the story, of the pro-life side of things. You look at, churches, and this really, this is one thing that just kind of totally irritates me is when I go into a church and people say, well, I'm pro-life except what? And because then it comes back to me. Now you're talking about my life. My birth mom was 17 years old. She was brutally attacked and raped and left along the side of the road. And this, of course, was in 72.
Yeah.
And, 72 when abortion was illegal in our country. And, she pressed charges against a man who had raped her. He was arrested and charged, and then she finds out she's pregnant. And, at the advice of her mother, she found herself at a back alley abortion facility, and she was strong enough to walk out of there and say, I want something better. And so her family hid her for the remainder of the pregnancy, and then she gave birth in April of 73 and abandoned me 2 hours after I was born. And so my biological father is a convicted rapist, and I don't even know my ethnicity, but I'm still a human being.
Right.
And I still have value. And when you say something like that, like I'm pro-life except, you've just taken my value and taken it down.
It has none.
Yeah.
That your life will
And so, if I can be that seed in somebody's life, that when they look at me and they say, I know somebody that is that exception, and now she's changing the world.
Right.
And these children that are born out of being conceived out of rape or incest, I want them to know that their life matters. They're not defined by their beginnings. They're defined by their life and what they do with it. And I have one of my best friends. Her name is Christy Hoffaber. She's a pro-life speaker, and her biological mother is also her sister, and her father is also her grandfather. And so she was conceived in incest, and she was placed for adoption. And when she found her biological family, she learned that her father was essentially sent to prison for incest of his daughter. And when she hears the I'm pro-life except in the case of rape and incest, it's like there goes her value.
Sure.
And she's beautiful. She, you put her and I on a stage together, and you have no argument left.
Right.
And we do travel sometimes together, and it's a beautiful thing to see. People look at us, and then just it kind of like, oh my gosh, why would I ever say that again?
I don't think people think that. I don't think people are aware or think it through that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make a judgment and they go on the path of their judgment and, don't think about, that's a completely alternative way of looking at it.
Yeah. So and I got to meet my birth mom when I was 37 years old, and getting to meet her, I think, gives me the empathy that I need to work with these women today. Because if you ever read the comments on some of the social media posts of these babies being saved or whatever, these some people are cruel to these women, and it's like I couldn't imagine. At the beginning, I didn't want this to be my life. Who would, right? And then after meeting her and getting to know her, I have been so blessed to be given the life that I have and the parents that I have, and to get to know her and to be able to wrap my arms around her and tell her how much I loved her, because I know she loved me, because I didn't end up in a dumpster. I was abandoned at a hospital. And so she did everything possible to make sure that I was going to be safe. Right. And she didn't, do something rash. And so I want these moms to know that this box is a safe place for them. You don't have to go and leave your baby at the doorstep of a hospital. You don't have to do that and hope that someone finds them. If you place your child in one of our electronically monitored boxes, they will be there within a minute and a half. These babies are picked up right away. And I want these mothers to feel encouraged that if this is all you got left, that this is enough. Yeah, this is enough.
Wow. So where are you speaking? Are you traveling the country doing this? You have to be by now, right?
I travel the country. I've been overseas. I've been in multiple countries. And like I said, I've just been so blessed with the life that I've been given. I'm married to a politician, surprisingly. And he's the mayor of our city. Okay. And he travels with me a lot. I know he probably shouldn't, but he does. And it's amazing to see the seeds that we're dropping, and then people call us back and say, because of you, I will never say accept again, or because of you, I will never go on social media and say, shame on her for throwing her baby in a box and getting rid of her responsibilities or something like that. And I'm going to make sure that everywhere I go, seeds are planted.
Well, you're no doubt doing that. So is it like a connection of your history and then that trip overseas that created this?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I knew I was abandoned, and so when I was in Cape Town, South Africa on a speaking tour, I was with Pam Stenzel, who's she's one of my best friends, and she speaks about abstinence. Mm-hmm. And of course I speak on the pro-life side of things at the time, and so it was abstinence meets pro-life in a country that needed to hear both.
Sure.
And so we spoke 14 times in 16 days, and the one church that we spoke at was the only church in Cape Town that had a baby safe. And now I completely thank Christ put me right there,
without a doubt,
for that.
Yeah.
And so I was taking photos of this and looking, and Pam's like, it was just amazing to see, and we've got so many photos. And then on that trip back, on that flight back, it was an 18-hour flight from Johannesburg to Atlanta. We hand drew a baby box on a napkin, and we outlined Safe Haven baby boxes. We knew what we wanted. We wanted that 800 number up and running so women could call us. Mm-hmm. We wanted the education piece, and we wanted the boxes, and we had it down before we ever got off that flight.
It's just divine.
Oh,
it's just divine
absolutely.
Order. Yeah, without a doubt.
He knew what he was doing.
Sure,
when he put me in that church.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. It was just like the time was right.
Oh yeah.
For that to get lit up for you. I have to tell you that I know you, like your courage is what comes to me so clearly. Like, not even, it's like above and beyond being selfless, but that you just like push forward, and that takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that.
I never sit down for long. When I'm down, you have to get up. You have, no matter how bad it gets, you still have to get up, you still have to dress up, and you still have to show up, because there are people that are depending on you.
There are a lot of people
You know,
that are going to be dependent.
And, you know, so one of the parts of my story that I don't talk about a whole lot publicly is when I installed the first 2 baby boxes in Indiana and I started getting pushback from the Department of Child Services. It was 30 days to the day that the first baby box in America was installed, that I was on the ambulance working as a medic, and I got a call at 2 o'clock in the morning for a vehicle rollover party pinned. And that's a high priority call for us, and that basically means that a vehicle has flipped and somebody is underneath this vehicle. And so it's not something that I had never worked before. And this is a common thing when somebody has a car accident. And so I jump in the ambulance, I put my bunker gear on, my driver jumps in the ambulance, he flips a light on, and I'm sitting there trying to get my head in the game, you know, because I know this is going to be bad. I mean, I've been on them 100 times. I know this isn't a good scenario, and it usually doesn't work out very well. And so I get halfway to the scene and I find out that it's my son and his best friend, and one is dead and one is alive. And as a mom, you know, that's one of our biggest fears.
Sure.
But as a medic, that was literally devastation for me, because then I knew at that point that I had to get there, 1, as fast as I could, and 2, I knew I couldn't work on my son. You know, I would have never stopped. I would have never stopped. And so I got to the scene, and my son was doing chest compressions on his best friend. And I worked Casey for 18 minutes in the field that night. I put a chopper in the air, and 18 minutes later, I called time of death. And this was a kid that I loved. He grew up with us, and going back 2 hours from that moment, my son was at a high school graduation party where the homeowner bought booze. And my son decided to get behind the wheel of a Jeep that he did not own, with his best friend sitting on the windowsill, not strapped in, and decided to do donuts in a 19-acre field in a Wrangler Jeep, which is known for flipping. And so sober people would know this, that these Jeeps are going to flip.
Right.
But somebody that's had alcohol is not. And with my husband being the mayor and me being who I was and going through this fight with the Department of Child Services, I just wanted to bury my head.
Sure.
And, you know, my son was arrested, and my son was charged with OWI causing death. And, you know, being the mayor's son, you can imagine the headlines. You know, mayor's son kills best friend in drunken accident. But, you know, I had to stand beside my son. I knew he was wrong. I knew he did not do something that we ever taught him to do. We always tried to make a good example of him growing up. But I had to have his back. And so until he went to prison, and he pled guilty, he did not take it to trial, he did not fight it. He walked in and looked at a judge and said, I did what you've accused me of doing, and I'm here to get my sentence. And so the judge sentenced him to 4 years in the Department of Corrections. And so he was sent to prison on December 16th, right before Christmas. And so I spent 2 Christmases, you know, away from him, and he went to a prison where it was not good. And so I had to then rely on faith to bring me back to where I needed to be. And that's when I started going back to the baby boxes and saying, okay, I have to do this. But in the same time, I was looking at what can I do to make this better for what JJ has done, because Casey's never coming back. We can never bring him back, but how can we take what has happened to Casey and turn it into something amazing? And it's hard to even envision something amazing coming from this, you know, but, you know, I look and I think, you know, what good can come out of this? My son is in prison and his best friend is dead. But then I look back at my birth mom's life and I think, you know, in 1972, she was asking herself the very same question. What good is going to possibly come out of this? And then, you know, 40 years later, she meets the daughter that is now saving others.
Right.
And there is redemption at the foot of the cross. And so I talked my son into a documentary of putting his story on a DVD and taking that into schools and talking to kids about Casey's life and his life growing up. And now he's got to live every day of his life knowing he took Casey's life. Yeah. And so now he's in schools. You know, he's out of prison now. He got out in January, and now he's started talking in schools, and this DVD is in over 150 schools. And so you have to keep moving, because if you sit back and you do nothing, no one will learn anything. And JJ's mistake has cost him everything.
Yeah, it has.
but it can
changed his trajectory.
Yeah, but it can change the lives of others if he just drops the seed. Just drops the seed. And when he goes into a school and he talks, and I go with him because he doesn't have a license now. His license, he won't get it back until the year 2023.
Okay.
And he lost it for 8 years, which I'm not saying anything.
It's a consequence.
He did break the law,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I go to these with him because I have to drive him to, or my husband does, and to see him connect with these kids, he's raw and he's real.
Yeah.
And he tells it to them straight. And that's what they need to hear. We were in a school last week in Ohio, in Van Wert, Ohio, it's called Vantage High School. You could hear a pin drop with him talking.
Sure.
And, he just sets the stage with, your best friend's probably sitting beside you in the seat right there. What if you decided to be stupid, got in your car, and killed them? How would you feel? I wish my best friend was still sitting beside me today. And he just puts it out there. And so to go back to, it was a long answer to your question, but to go back to, persevering and pushing. I'm a person that feels that everything that happens in your life can teach someone something.
Agreed. Yes.
It's just how you put it out there.
It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
It's what you do with it. Interesting. Thank you for sharing about your son. What came to mind too was, and I think this might be just when he gets a little bit further in his path, is I could see him being in juvenile detention centers.
Yeah.
Because, and I've spoken in those places, because there's something to be said for having come through bad decisions.
Oh yeah.
Bad choices,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's something on the other side of it.
Oh yeah.
There can be something on the, and that decision can be the catalyst of such amazing things. Like your life is an example of that. Had your birth mom made a number of other decisions, you wouldn't be sitting here and doing like remarkable things in the world. And you haven't even gotten going yet.
I know.
You're just
getting started.
Yeah, exactly. You're just starting to pick up a little steam.
Yeah.
It's just where this is going to go is just there's no end to this. I just see just amazing things coming.
Christ has an amazing job for me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty blessed that he chose me for this role. I used to think that I wasn't blessed. Now it's like I couldn't imagine not doing this for him.
Right.
So.
And so it's almost like everything works together in my world, so your birth mom made choices that she made. Had she said, I'm going to let somebody adopt you in the family or anything, you may not have had that spark of a passion or that history to pull from.
Right.
And then there's a whole big chunk of your conversation we haven't talked about and don't necessarily need to, but like how you've come up, how you've learned, what you've been through, what were the things that shaped and crafted you, that you became the woman that just goes, poof, here I go.
Right.
You're not even connected to the profound courage and the absolute beauty of your soul is just it just goes woo, it vibrates off of you.
Thank you.
But you're woo, you just keep moving through. It's but all of that is part of how you show up and how you're doing it and what you're doing. I love that in the face of what you went through with your son, that you took time to reflect and reignited the passion and kept pushing through the obstacles that you were finding on a governmental plane. My goodness gracious.
I know.
That's do you know how amazing that is?
I look back now and there's days where I'm like, I don't know how I ever got through this. I remember the day after Casey died and I couldn't take it. I was just, I had the fight with DCS and the Department of Health in Indiana, and now Casey's dead, and my son wanting to go over to Casey's house and talk to his family, and I'm like, I had just had it,
yeah.
and then the fact that, forget that, but I'm a medic,
yeah.
and I tried to save his life and I failed,
oh.
And so it's like,
yeah.
and I knew that night, that my son was drinking. Not before that. When I got to that scene, I knew he had been drinking.
Okay.
And I knew that if I didn't save Casey, that he was going to prison. I knew he was going to go to prison if I didn't save Casey.
You
and
knew
so,
that as you were working on Casey?
yeah, and it's like I remember,
Oh,
and
my
I don't talk
goodness.
about this too much, but I remember sitting there and I was trying to intubate Casey and get a tube down his throat to breathe for him because he wasn't breathing. He was in cardiac arrest. And I remember I couldn't get the tube in him, and I was so frustrated with myself.